Hello and Happy New Year for everyone joining. Thank you so much for being here. This is our first episode of Nick's First Warning Weather of 2026. And this is a space where we break down some of the big weather stories shaping your season. I'm your host, Esmeralda Zamora, but of course, with me to talk all things weather is our chief meteorologist, Nick Bannin.
Hey.
Nick, you moved your chair.
Well, I moved it, and then after you said it, because that's what I did, and then I moved it over here, and I was like, ooh, I should probably move it back to where I was.
Well,
then
I can follow you.
And now
so.
you're following me. What do I go over here?
No.
But no, I'll settle down over here. Hey, yes, happy Nick's first warning of 2026, Esme. Do you have a good New Year's?
I did, but you know what? Coming here to talk about heat is not making my new year better.
I know. Well, it depends. There are people who have moved here from much colder places
That's
that
true.
are like, this is the best. 70s and 80s in December and January when the rest of the country is cold. I love it. That's what maybe they are saying. And then there's a lot of people that are like, hey, we deal with the warmth and the heat too much through the year. This is our time to cool down. We wish it were cold. And I hear you as well. So there are two types of folks out there, and we're going to try and cover the happiness of both of them today.
Well, I know that we're going to be discussing our freezes and the coldest weather season or coldest month of the year.
Yeah.
But I was just going to ask you to explain that, and I already did, so never mind.
Yeah. Well, how about we just dive with a quick recap about the warmth so far this January, because I think it's a good place to start before we talk about what should be the coldest temperatures of the whole year happening now. Instead, it's the opposite. Every single day this month through yesterday, we've had well above average highs. Today's official high hasn't come in yet. That's why it's not a red box just yet. But we've already reached the low 80s. So it's another above average day. And not only that, but we have already broken the high temperature record today. We tied the high temperature record yesterday. And on the 2nd of January, we broke the high temperature record that day as well. So it has been an incredibly warm start to the year and to January, especially when you counter it with the fact that we should be dealing with our coldest temperatures of the year.
Yeah.
Just a recap of those hottest January days ever. This is data that goes back all the way to the late 1800s. And on January 2nd of this year, our second hottest temperature ever recorded in the month of January. We had that with that high of 88. And then yesterday, January 6th, we're recording this here on the 7th, we had our 16th hottest January day ever with a high of 84. So already this month, we have been off to an incredibly warm start. And then if you look at the first 6 days of the month, not including today because the official high hasn't happened yet, we are dealing and experiencing the second warmest start to the month of January when you look at just the first 6 days of the month, which I get is just a small sample size. And by the time we're done with January, we're probably not going to be in the top 1 or 2 spots. But for now we are, and you can compare that 65.5, that's the average temperature from the 1st through the 6th of this year, meaning we look at the morning low, the afternoon high, and we get the average of that for each day of the first 6 days of the year, and that equals 65.5 degrees. And where we should be is 52. So we've been averaging 13.5 degrees warmer than normal for the first 6 days of the month. That is hugely significant. Generally speaking, a degree or two over a longer period of time is pretty significant. But 13.5 degrees warmer than normal
is crazy
warm when you consider that we should be much, much colder than this.
And this kind of reflected into our December. We weren't as cold as we thought we were going to be. And even in other parts of the country around us, I was in New Mexico for the winter break, and every local person was talking about how this was a Christmas for them where they didn't see snow. It was the hottest Christmas that they've had on record.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's not just us.
Much of the western third of the U.S., actually not including Texas, have experienced their warmest start to winter on record. Not their second or third warmest, but out in number 1. It is crazy how much this warmth has been so widespread. And of course, that's led to record low snowfall amounts as well, although they're starting to see some improvements in the western states as far as the snowpack goes.
But what is the reason behind it?
So we'll get to that here in a second. I just want to keep digging into just the details of so far before we jump ahead to the why and the when the cold may come. Just a reminder, we've only had one freeze since November of last year. Typically, we get 12 in a year or during the colder months, some say November to April. And so we are well behind. Now, last year, we had only had about one freeze by now as well. And then things escalated and we picked up 14 freezes when you added up January and February. So we were behind last year too around this time. And then we played some quick catch up due to much more wintry weather around this time last year. But for now, we're not seeing signs of significantly adding to the number of freezes. We may get one or two here and there over the next week. So it all comes to this. And the reason that we're talking today is that January 2nd through the 14th of January, climatologically speaking, when you look at the 30-year average from 1991 to 2020, this is supposed to be the coldest time of the year. Mm-hmm. This is when our average lows reach the lowest that they get all year of 41, and our average highs reach the lowest that they get all year of 62. And then once we get to the 15th of January, then we'll start to see both the average low and the average high slowly coming up until we're almost averaging highs around triple digits, July into August. So this is supposed to be our coldest time of the year, which makes the 70s and 80s that much more remarkable. And we're supposed to be getting freezes in January too. January is the month that we average the most freezes of the year. It sort of makes sense. It's the coldest time of the year. Should be the time that we get the most freezes of the year, right?
We're only in day 7, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I know. We're not talking that, January is going to be 80s every single day of the month. That is not going to happen. But we are a weekend, and there's no signs of huge, bitter cold coming, even though there are some signs of chillier, more typical winter air coming that we'll talk about here in a bit. But if we don't get many freezes in January, and we've not had many when you added up November and December, we should have had 4 and we got 1. And then here we are into January with no freezes so far. We've got to do some catch up here because February is typically a month that while the beginning can be very winter-like, it warms quickly in the month. We only average 2 freezes in February, which is fewer than December. Mm-hmm. December is actually colder than February on average. And then by March, just 1 freeze. And of course, many Marches don't get any freezes at all. And then just before we get into the why again, this sort of really sums up where we are. We're at the coldest time of the year. I already talked about it being the coldest 12 days of the year, the 2nd through the 14th of February. Mm-hmm. But also our average monthly temperature in January of 52 is the lowest it gets all year. And then February warms up a little bit more, although not necessarily a lot, but we do see some warming by the end of the month. More significant warming in March. April's a much warmer month. We average temperatures of 70, meaning lows near 60 and highs near 80. And then things get incredibly warm as we head through the summer months, as likely our viewers of this well know, until we start cooling off in a hurry into November and especially December, but January being the coldest month of the year, that's where we are right now. February is the 3rd coldest month of the year because of December being the 2nd. So all that to say, we should be much colder, but so far we're not.
We are definitely not.
Yeah.
I want to thank everyone who's watching us live. I am looking at the comments, and I do want to share them with Nick. Our first comment says, "Where is winter?" with crying faces. And then our second comment is from Scott, and he says, "What do you see long-term for the 31st?"
For the 31st of...
I'm guessing January.
January, yeah. So maybe he's got a specific event on the 31st, so we can try and guide him around that. So first of all, that first question leads me to what I was going to get to now anyway, which is where's the cold?
Yeah.
Right? So let's just show you what a typical La Niña winter looks like. And remember, we're in a weak La Niña now, where the jet stream is typically centered north of us. That often traps the coldest of the air in the upper Midwest and into Canada. I know it's usually cold there anyway, but I mean colder than normal air is usually locked up to the north of us. But it is usually not locked up so far north that we don't get any of it. It's usually a bit to our north, but sometimes some stronger cold fronts in January into early February especially could help to bring some of that cold air down. But what we found so far this winter is that cold air has been trapped even farther north than that. That has even kept a lot of the wetter weather that we had in the Pacific Northwest in parts of December. That has been pulled farther to the north. That has taken a lot of the moisture that would have headed into some of the mountainous zones of, say, Utah, Colorado, areas that rely on skiing, or farther down into New Mexico and Arizona. That has taken a lot of their moisture farther north too, because the jet stream has been even farther north than a typical La Nina winter. So that's been why we have been so warm for much of winter. In fact, some of the coldest weather we've had came earlier in December when we had some highs only in the 40s and our first freeze of the season. And then since then, we just have not been down there. I should say, though, that we still have a month and a week left until what is our average final freeze of the year. So we are by no means shutting the door to winter. There's some signs of chillier air arriving this weekend and more seasonably chilly air staying around with us here next week. Now, is it the type of winter cold that leads to wintry precipitation? We don't think so in the near term, but at least it brings us back down to reality. But all this is to say is that we still have another month and a week left, at least, of having to keep our guard up for potential freezes at night and possibly some wintry weather during the day. Now, these are the latest freezes we've ever had. So, that mid-February deadline is certainly not a hard and fast deadline. You can see here, Esme, we've had freezes that
all the way until the end of March. That's crazy.
Into April. Look at those first 3 dates there. We've had freezes there around Easter in the past. April 9th of 1914 had a freeze. April 2nd, 1924. April 1st. Think of that for an April Fool's Day, and you're dealing with a freeze in Austin. Maybe not snow, but at least a freeze. So
that would be nice.
All this to say is that we haven't had winter, much of it. A couple of brief periods of cold, and we did have one day where we had some sleet in the air. But it is way too early to say that we're done with wintry weather just yet, or cold even.
Yeah, and Scott answered your question and said, yes, I do have an outdoor event planned for January 31st.
January 31st.
It's pretty far to tell, right?
Yeah, from an event planning perspective, it can be a bit tough to nail down the time on the 31st and the weather expected for that day. But how we're going to end our discussion here in a few minutes, I'll give you the 8 to 14 day temperature and rainfall outlook that should take us deeper into January to give you some guidance of where our weather patterns look to be going. It won't quite take you to the 31st. It's a bit too early.
Close. Yeah, maybe you'll get a little hint
into that.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about when our final freeze of the season and of the colder months was in the past 5 years, because sometimes this can be helpful. January 20th of 2024 had our final freeze. February 18th in 2023, so a later than normal final freeze. And in 2022, almost a full month later than normal, we had a freeze there in March on the 12th. That was the latest freeze in the last several years. Back in 2021, we had a freeze on February 20th. That's pretty close to normal. In 2020, February 27th had a freeze. And compare these numbers and these dates to our typical final freeze, which is February 15th. It's sort of interesting because only 2024 had a final freeze in recent years that was earlier than normal. Every one of those other dates has actually been later than normal.
Did 2024 start colder earlier in December?
I'm trying to remember, and sometimes these years blur together.
It was last year, Nick.
2024 was a little more than a year ago now. So anyway, but we can get back to that, and I can do some digging here once we're done with this. And I can also throw in and look up the last freeze of this year too, which I think came in late January, early February. And then just for those of you curious about other parts of the country, when the final freeze is in different places, and you can see there on the left side of your screen, the colors that match the legend there. And you can see it's the southern and western and southeastern states that have the earliest final freezes on average, meaning mid-January through mid-February. Of course, some places never freeze, especially some coastal spots don't get there. And parts of Florida don't freeze too.
Most of Florida, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially the farther north you go, you freeze, but parts of the state don't necessarily see a freeze every year, although sometimes they do. But you can see the farther north you go, the later that final freeze is, and then as you focus on those mountainous areas, you could be well into April and still freezing, even well into May and still dealing with a freeze, which can be great for spring skiing and snowboarding and that sort of thing, that you can get some overnight temperatures that are conducive to snowmaking later in the year. But as far as we go, we're right in that category there of February, early to mid-February for the most part. So that brings us to, all right, well, what about now? What about this week? What about the next couple of weeks?
Is it going to get any colder this week?
Is it going to get colder? The answer is yes, it will get colder. Will it get cold enough to satisfy those that love the cold? I'm not so sure about that. We'll go with a high of 81 here Thursday, which is tomorrow as we're recording this on January 7th. Mm-hmm. And then a cold front comes in on Friday, knocks us down into the 70s. That cold front comes in around the middle of the day in Austin, so we're not going to be as warm, but we won't feel the true effects of that cold front and that colder air until Saturday, with highs only in the 50s. And that high in the upper 50s may actually occur early in the morning, and we may be more like the low 50s for Saturday afternoon highs. And then Sunday, Monday, we're sort of hovering around average. Remember, average this time of year, the lowest average high of the year is 62. So we'll be right at average on Sunday. For those of you wanting it to feel like it should, well, there's your day, Sunday. And then Monday, a little colder than normal. Let me see if I can pull up an additional map that I hadn't pre-prepared here.
It looks like it goes from cold and then it starts creeping back up to warm.
It does start to creep back up. As far as nighttime lows go, that can be something that we like to focus on a lot this time of year too, because of the potential for freezes. Now, just because these numbers don't go down to freezing in Austin doesn't mean the parts of the area don't freeze. Sunday morning and especially Monday morning, lows in Austin in the mid-30s would be cold enough for a freeze in the hill country. So, you know, there's some freezes possible even in the next week. And I can't rule out that we get one in Austin at this point. We're still several days away, but right now our lows on Monday have been hovering around the mid-30s pretty consistently the last couple of days before they start to climb up. So here's what I'll say, Esme. Signs of more typical winter weather and winter temperatures here, but not signs of extreme winter cold or wintry precipitation coming in the near term. And then we'll end here with a look at the extended 8 to 14 day rainfall outlook. Of course, rainfall, we say rainfall because it's mostly falling in the form of rain here in Central Texas, but it means precipitation of any kind, right? But from January 15th through the 21st, take you all the way to your event on the 31st. But we are leaning wetter than normal, a little more active pattern here as we head into the middle of the month, into the back half of the month. But from a temperature perspective, looking near normal, which is already cooler than we have been. We haven't had a lot of near normal so far this winter. So this is going to be chillier for us, but near normal is a far cry from the much colder air that some of you are hoping for. Although this does limit how much you have to spend on heating when you're not having Arctic outbreaks or concerns about power outages or ice and that sort of thing. Not that we're ruling that out. But generally speaking, some of our coldest time in the next couple of weeks just looks to be near normal and nothing super unusual for this time of year.
That is nice to hear, because this weather that we are seeing right now on January 7th at around 3:20 p.m. is the type of weather that I like.
Oh, you like the 80s then?
Yeah, it's not too hot, but it's also not too cold. I can wear a light sweater or no sweater and comfortable, right?
Boom, there you go. Plus, it's not been that humid either.
Yeah.
You know, we've had the humidity try to creep up here and there, But generally speaking, these warmer days that we've had this week have been the days that the humidity has dropped quite a bit. That being said, the dry line that we had come through yesterday and the cold front that we've got coming through later this week, and almost any time we've got a cold front in the winter, it's going to cause a cedar spike.
Yes.
So if allergies are your thing, we've got our allergy page on KXAN.com where we can monitor the allergen counts by the hour. So you can sort of get a sense of, okay, it was high this morning, but where's it going now? So make sure you give that a look.
And correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think that this past weekend was just a crazy allergy high.
We got that again yesterday into today. The 24-hour average is very high. So we're about as close as we were to our highest cedar counts of the season, with the exception of this past weekend where we just about edged it out a little bit. But it is rough for those of you that deal with that. Itchy eyes, scratchy throat, runny nose, sneezing, all the stuff.
Yeah.
Blog on KXAN.com under the weather and traffic tab. Just see that tab there on the top. You could slide it down to weather blogs. There you go. Weather. So there's the allergy report there. Weather blogs is on that second column, the third one down. You can click on that, and then you can see the third story there, coldest time of the year, in quotes, because obviously it's not that cold.
Not right now.
So far. But that's where you can read this blog, more details about what we're looking at. And as we also hinted at, the allergy report under that weather and traffic tab too. And appreciate you joining us here today, Esme.
Yeah, I spoke with Kristen earlier today, and I like the way that she put this. She said that we're in Central Texas, and Central Texas weather can be Central Texas weather. So no matter how cold, it can still be dangerous, and it's important to stay up to date with what notifications and where, Nick.
Yeah, so our KXAN weather app, it got a new update here recently, and I can put a graphic on the screen here if you give me a second to get that up. And here we go. New update to our KXAN weather app. It's got a brand new look. Same app. So you don't have to re-download it. You just have to make sure that your phone has the updated version of it. You still get the same hourly forecast in 7-day. It's in an easier to use way. The radar has been improved, so it's less confusing whether you're looking at current and past radar or future radar modeling. That's been made much clearer. We've also got some new imagery there to really bring it home that this is an app that we dive into every day and adjust by hand. Our 5 meteorologists
not by
are putting
computer,
in the numbers.
Right?
Not a computer model. Unless you leave Central Texas, then it turns to the model. But if you're here locally watching and you've got the app set to your local location, then it'll be pulling in the weather data that we put in manually. So make sure you've got that latest version. And if you do, and you just haven't played around with it yet because the weather hasn't been as crazy, give it a look now. And you can make those settings for the notifications you want to be filled in on, severe weather, winter weather, all that. You can make those changes to the settings there.
Yeah, you can even make it track you to give you the weather anywhere you are.
If you want it to. Yeah, so it can follow you and give you the alerts that you need depending on your location. You can also set it to specific locations like your house, your work, grandma's house, so that you can get all that sort of information if you want it.
If you want it.
If you want it.
Well, thanks for joining me, Nick.
Thanks for having me, and Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Thanks for hanging out with us here on Nick's First Warning. Again, I'm your host, Esmeralda Zamora, and if you want more great conversations like this one, make sure to download our free KXAN Plus streaming app. Again, it's free to download on your favorite TV app, and don't forget to check us out on our website, KXAN.com. We'll see you next time.